was it like coming here as an attendee for years and then going out into Hall H?
Well, it was great because I've never been able to get into Hall H. So the first time I was able to get in, I was actually presenting something. So that was pretty fun. I know it was incredible. I mean, this is big time. I think that's probably the largest audience that I've presented any of my work to before. But it's great because you feel very comfortable because this is the fans are here, the people who really love this. I mean, this is their world, and they're so excited about it and so excited to see this material and meet the makers. So it was really an incredible experience. Plus, it was dark enough that I couldn't quite see how big the audience was, so it kind of took the edge off a little bit. But I mean, it's great to be sitting on a panel with Tim Burton and Timur Bekmambetov, Elijah Wood and Jennifer Connelly, because I mean, you're up with some amazing talent, and you know that they're gonna help shield some of the questions and participate in the conversation. So it was great.
Now, your film as well as District 9 are both films where we've got young first-time directors with producers who are filmmakers. So what's that experience like?
I feel very fortunate that was the way that I was able to, the circumstance I was able to make my first feature film. And I mean, I think it's amazing to have a filmmaker of that caliber of Tim Burton or Timur Bekmambetov. They're both as sort of an idea well. If you run into problems or you're trying to solve story points or trying to figure out a way to kind of shoot something or tell a story point, as well as just somebody who's there who validates the film, believes in the filmmaker, and is able to sort of make a protective shield around me so that I have the creative space to tell a story that I want.
The impression that I get, because they weren't in any of the recording sessions that I did, Timur or Tim, but I think that they were an amazing support for Shane to, in a way, I think, be a buffer from him to the studio and answering some of those questions for him so that he was allowed to have the space to really make the movie that he wanted to make.
Well, the visual style, it feels very painterly in some way. It feels like we're exploring this world. It's romantic in a lot of ways, not romantic in the sense of like, love, but romantic in the sense of like the old classical paintings, the Turner and the Ruskin and some of these. It's a really, it's an interesting world and space that we enter. And even though it's post-apocalyptic, which, is dark and people, are always kind of worried that it's too heavy, we're really trying to find the beauty in this kind of landscape. And we're exploring the world from a completely different perspective. We're 9 inches off the ground, and we're experiencing the world from these creatures who inhabit spaces that we don't or can't. It's not the ruins of our world, it's the ruins of this kind of retro-futuristic world. It's very steampunk in nature, so it's as if a steampunk world collapsed. So it's really fun. I think there's a lot of visual delight and design in the world that makes it really exciting and interesting.
Do you think we're at a particularly kind of interesting point in technology where it seems like the technology is allowing filmmakers to go some places that they haven't been able to do either because of cost or just because of the limits of technology in the past?
In some ways, I'm proof, and the proof is in the pudding, and I'm an example of that because I was able to make the short film on my own in my spare bedroom. The technology had come down to a level where independent artists and filmmakers can use it. You don't need the whole infrastructure of a studio to produce your own short film. You've got all the editing software, the sound software, the animation software. Everything is at your disposal if you just have the energy and enthusiasm to stick with it for 4.5 years. You can make a director's piece that can get out and get exposure and get some momentum, then hopefully open doors so you can do longer form films. And I think what's also great now is that a lot of the big studios and the software companies have solved a lot of the technical rendering aspects, whether it's water or snow or fur or hair, so that those just become tools, new brushes in the painter's toolkit, so that the filmmakers can concentrate on the storytelling rather than all the technical challenges that go with that.
Being directed by him, it was always, for me, it was always in the context of knowing that he's an animator as well. He is a creator, and he did single-handedly create the vision of this world. And he'd had much experience animating before as well. He actually worked on Lord of the Rings at Weta Digital as an animator, which is kind of fascinating. So coming from that animation background and understanding kind of how to apply those elements, and then also being a storyteller and having a very strong relationship to the story, because these are characters that he created. It was always fascinating to hear him talk and and to get, you know, a sense of where the character was going to go and where we were going with the story at any given time, because if, you know, he was wonderful about being able to articulate those things.
So, you know, it'll go from script, and then usually we'll get some scratch voice actors to come in and do a dry run on the performance of the characters. Then, you know, the storyboard artists have their take on the characters and personalities, and then we'll go and record the actual actors who will have a different take on the personality, and then we'll take all that raw material to the animators who then start to construct the performance that way. But it's not just that linear, because we'll make discoveries all along the way, and so at some point we'll be like, oh, now we really start to understand who this character is, and we'll kind of go back and we'll rewrite stuff, we'll re-record the actors, and then do different, you know, changes in the performances as well. So it's just kind of organic. It's just spending time with the characters and getting into the rhythm of the performance. So the characters kind of develop over time and out of this process.
But, you know, when we were in the studio recording, and this is true of all the actors, we were filmed, there was a little video camera as a reference for the animators. So although I haven't, you know, in the 2 times that I've seen the movie, I didn't specifically look at my character to see how much of me ended up in the physical performance. Although I am sure there is quite a lot. You know, we are filmed for reference, and they use our face and our facial expressions at any given time as help for them to, you know, inform on the way that they would animate. So I'm sure there's bits of me in there for sure.
In working on an animated film like this, as a director, do you sort of end up having to direct twice, in the sense of you're directing your voice actors, and then do you also have to direct your animators?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and not only that, but it's further complicated by the fact that you'll have a team of 15 different animators, all responsible for the performance of one character in the film. So yeah, it gets, you know, you find your character is somewhere between the actors, the voice actors, and the animators, and then also, you know, the character designers and all that. So it's really a team of artists all working together to create the performance and the personalities of these characters.
And what's the biggest challenge in doing these kind of films where you're not, you know, in a real environment interacting? But I mean, it seems like that's been the case sort of with, I mean, Sin City was a lot of a blue screen and
well, yeah, and Sin City's weirder. That's weirder in a way. Yeah, because you're, yeah, because you're actually in an environment, you are physically acting, but there's nothing around you. And, you know, for that, I was lucky enough to actually work with, it was a stunt double. I didn't actually work with Mickey Rourke, which is kind of extraordinary. But I did work with someone physically, and then there were also things that I was reacting to that weren't there. So that, in some ways, is more challenging or more strange. Whereas when you're in a studio recording your voice, it is singularly about the voice, and I really enjoy that. I think the process is very interesting, and you know, you are kind of unhindered about the physical, and you're not having to worry about all of those exterior elements. You're only worried about how to emote and bring the character to life vocally, and you know, how to do that physically in that space, because that certainly helps, especially if it's an action sequence. You find yourself having to move to imbue the voice with a sense of movement. But no, I actually really enjoyed the process. I think it's a lot of fun, and it becomes very singularly about creating that character through voice.
So in coming here, did you have anybody at the panels or anybody you've run into, you know, kind of being that young filmmaker that you were, now coming to you and saying, oh, how do you do this? Do you have any advice?
I was very fortunate to have a conversation like that. A young filmmaker who was presenting a trailer for a project that he would like to develop as a feature based on one of his graphic novels. Really beautifully illustrated graphic novel that I guess had garnered a lot of attention and had inspired him to try to pursue it as an animated film. And so I was just really encouraging to him, you know, he's like, well, what advice do you have to me? And I was just saying, well, just stick with it, believe in yourself, you know, keep pushing it forward. People will respond to the enthusiasm, the momentum that you create, you know, yourself, and they'll see when someone has really poured their heart into something. And, you know, in my case, just, you know, a team has assembled behind me and really believed in what we were doing, and have all brought something to bear on the project and made it, you know, what it is. So that's the kind of advice that I presented to him.